TV. This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome everyone, RTV Sports Rap back again. Spencer Byers along with me this week, Michael Harris and Cajun Thingaroo, Thaney Castleham. And gentlemen, we haven't talked a lot about the NBA, so this week we're going to lead off with it because the NBA season is right in the swing of things. Teams have completed roughly 13 to 15 games of their season. And I'm going to start with you, Cage, because we can get a chance to really talk about the Raptors preseason, talk about them coming into this year, what you liked, what you didn't like. So first impressions on the Raptors beginning of the season here in the NBA.
Their starting lineup could be one of the best in the league. With Quickly, Ingram, Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Jakob Poeltl at times. And yeah, they struggled a little bit to start off the year. But obviously, like, you didn't have Brandon. You may have brought Brandon Ingram in from the trade deadline last season, but he didn't play. And now, during this stretch of games in which they've won 8 of their last 9 games, I believe, you can kind of see Barnes, Barrett, and Ingram all start to get it together, and quickly he's rebounded after that slow start of his. And Poeltl's had some good games too, and Jamal Shed has had some great defensive moments guarding the point of attack. And as much as that Colin Murray Boyles pick was kind of ridiculed at the time, defensively he's a heck of a player. So they are taking care of the business in the games that they're supposed to win. Although winning twice in Cleveland was pretty impressive, especially the second one and the 2 ones in Atlanta. But they are taking care of business. It remains to be seen, like, if they can keep this going the rest of the way into the new year and then beyond. But with an East that is kind of like up in the air, anything can happen.
The East is very wide open, and I do want to mention one other thing, Cage. When you talk about, obviously, Brandon Ingram being hurt from the trade from the Pelicans, Emmanuel Quickly also dealt with a lot of injuries last year. I felt like everyone did kind of on the Raptors. This year, they've been very healthy, mostly healthy. And you mentioned Murray Boyles. He played at center when they lost Jakob Poeltl earlier this year. So not only is he good defensively, at only 6'8" as a power forward, he's also subbed in and been a starter for this team early in the season because of injuries. So you also have to like that versatility from the first rounder, and I think you kind of skipped over the reason why he was so maligned as a draft pick is because his reaction at the table was kind of I don't want to go to Toronto, it's really cold, I'd rather go back to South Carolina, which again I do wonder how much of a play it is of the northern weather versus necessarily being in Canada and how all of that fits into certain players.
I think that's kind of overplayed because
I would agree. I would agree.
There's places that are like New York,
Milwaukee.
Yeah.
There's lots of northern cities that also get snow, but I feel like Toronto gets it maybe the worst along the national media's perspective. But I'll go to you, Michael. Raptors right now 3rd in the East. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're on a 4-game winning streak currently. What have you seen from them to begin this NBA season?
Well, at the beginning of the season, I was quite worried, right? They did not look good out of the hop this first 5 or 6 games. And you saw how, you guys mentioned the players quickly, and Barnes and RJ Barrett and Brandon Ingram. They couldn't kind of figure out how to be on the floor together. Those are all guys, those 4 guys that want to have the ball in their hands. They're not all point guards, certainly, but they're all guys that want to control the ball and have the ball and make plays. And it can be difficult. Toronto for a number of years and, a couple of coaches now has wanted to kind of have this positionless basketball idea. And one of the challenges with that is when you have a lot of players that have similar attributes, it can be difficult to figure out how to get them to play together. Well, whatever Darko Rajokovic is doing now is working. It's in that game against the Pacers. Of course, the Pacers are really struggling, but sometimes the sign of a good team is that they don't let up against an inferior opponent. And by absolutely taking it to the Pacers, I thought that was one of the better signs of the season. They just kept their foot on the gas and kept going and said, you're a bottom team, we're a top team, and I'm going to prove that. One of the things we talked about in kind of our season preview show, I'll call it, we talked about the NBA, I mentioned Brandon Ingram, a guy that actually wanted to be here. You mentioned that free agent bit. Free agents have not wanted to come to Toronto. They haven't. It's not about the snow. It's about a different country. And that's been Masai Ujiri. For everybody lauded him for how great of a GM and all that. He could never get the big free agent to come to Toronto. They got Kawhi on a desperate trade. Again, Brandon Ingram was part of a trade, but he was excited to come here. And that was something I was really looking forward to seeing. And he has shown that as they've gelled and come together. I've been really impressed with Brandon Ingram, and he wants to be in Toronto, which I love. So I'm really been impressed. Pirtle just does it. He just goes out and plays. No flash dash. He just gets the job done. And I've got a huge appreciation for that big man that knows he's a big man. He's not hanging around the arc shooting threes. He's going down to the post doing the dirty work, and he's very good at it. So I've been really impressed, obviously, this last 10-game stretch for the Raptors, and I think they can keep it going. I think they're for real.
I think it's not a coincidence that when the Raptors did struggle, Jakob Poeltl wasn't as aggressive. But ever since he did come back and then he started to get aggressive, you can see the Raptors kind of roll offensively once things started to click. And really happy to see Poeltl thrive in that area that he's thriving in. Not trying to do too much, not trying to stray away, like some other bigs that are. I've seen hit threes that I was like, where did you get that from? Cough, Andre Drummond. But yeah, he's doing what he's supposed to do, and I think Toronto kind of being like a play-in team heading into that year, like with all those projections, all of a sudden they may be a top 6 seed or maybe more than that.
Maybe. I'll get your opinion here, JC, in just 1 second, but I also want to mention when, Michael, you talk about the having so many ball-dominant players and, who's going to be the passer, it seems to be everybody. They have 5 players averaging over 3 assists per game. Brandon Ingram, 3.8, and RJ Barrett, 3.9, are just below 4. If those guys get over 4, they have 5 players over 4 assists per game, putting them right now third in the NBA at assists per game at just above 22, I believe, 22 assists per game, and their percentage-wise is second, with about 20% of their made shots being assisted. So this team is not only very good being versatile, and you mentioned kind of positionless, well, they're 6'6" to 6'8" forwards, they're also very selfless, which is something you got to love from all these guys that are normally major scorers, like Scotty Barnes has been with the Raptors previously, like Brandon Ingram's been previously with the New Orleans Pelicans, like RJ Barrett was previously at his former spots. So it's nice to see all of those guys really being able to fit in together and being selfless and letting the next guy take making a good shot a great shot, or making a great shot the best shot, and kind of having that coaching philosophy, as you mentioned, with Darko Rakovic and the Raptors coaching staff. Now I'll go to you, JC. What have been your thoughts here as the NBA season has begun for the Toronto Raptors?
I mean, they're off to a great start. I think that, yes, in some cases it is surprising how good of a start they're off to. But at the same time, I heard a comparison today saying, they're almost built a little bit like the Toronto Blue Jays. You've got like this scrappy team that's been put together that kind of leans on each other, and you never know what they can accomplish. And I think they've been playing some really good basketball as of late. Obviously, 8-2 in their last 10 dictates that they're on the right track. And in a year where the East is kind of wide open, this, I think, bodes well for the Raptors and their playoff hopes, and maybe getting a really good matchup heading into the playoffs. I mean, it's still early, very obviously, and they're in a bad division where they're going to be battling the Knicks for top of that division for the entire season. But you gotta, if you're a Raptors fan, like the start we're off to. I don't know that this is necessarily another NBA championship season, but a competitive playoff team that we haven't gotten to see in a little while, that's pretty good for the fans.
I definitely think this team will be top 6, as Cajun kind of mentioned. Now, JC, I want to kind of open the floor to you. Are there any other teams you've been surprised by positively or negatively? Right now, the Pistons, who are maybe my dark horse pick going into the season, they right now lead the Eastern Conference. The Oklahoma City Thunder are 14-1 to begin this season. The Nuggets are just behind them at 10-3 in the West. Lots to like. Some teams that maybe we thought would be better or not. Right now, the Indiana Pacers going off an NBA Finals, 1-13. Who knew Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner were that important? I think everyone did. But anyway, JC, any teams you've been surprised by to begin this NBA season?
Yeah, I think the Pacers are a pretty big surprise at this point. That's a horrible start to the season when you were just at the NBA championship a year ago. Not even. Tyrese Halliburton obviously out for the season with the torn Achilles. That's huge for that team, and I think that does explain. You sounded surprised. Could it really come down to two guys? But in a lot of cases, yeah, that's the main makeup of an NBA DNA, and without them, that's huge. Yeah, I mean, look at if you flip the coin and go with the champs from last season, they're right where they want to be. Right now, dominating in the West are the OKC Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander seems like he's on another MVP tear already with the start that he's off to. So it's been a lot of fun to watch them start the season, looking like they haven't skipped a beat. The Lakers, surprisingly, a bit of a good start. Luka Doncic has looked great. They, up until tonight, as we record this, haven't even had LeBron play yet.
Yeah.
And he's going to start season number 23 tonight, which is insane. I know that there have been some very long NBA careers, but it's a different game today. And if LeBron is still in a position where he can keep up with that game, then more power to him. Hopefully he can last to season 25. We'll wait and see. But if it proves to be the opposite, and with a player of that age, it could. I mean, all of a sudden now, is it a novelty? Are you taking a bench space away from somebody that could really use it? Will they have to make some hard decisions? Or will he just be incredible? Will he be in the top 15? Who knows? We'll wait and see on that one. But yeah, I think that those are some of the big surprises. That and the Pistons, they've looked great as well to start the season, already challenging for the Eastern Conference crown. So that's again another exciting team to watch, and for Detroit Pistons organization that's been pretty bad for the last little while. This is kind of nice to see them be competitive.
Dumar's moved to the Pelicans. I think they got clear of that.
Yeah, and the Pelicans are on the opposite end of the spectrum there, Cage. I'll go to you now. Are any teams that really surprised you positively or negatively as we kind of begun this NBA season?
I wouldn't say the Pacers, only because they've been dealing with multiple injuries aside from Halliburton and Turner. Siakam's probably the only healthy Pacer that's played in all of those regular season games. Neymar's been out, Nesmith's been out. A lot of guys have been in and out of that lineup, and I don't think we've really seen a Pacers team that was like full outside of Halliburton. So I'll give them some flack in terms of that. Thunder have been the biggest surprise to me, not necessarily because of their start, but they're also doing this without Jalen Williams even playing. And they're killing teams on top of that. Like, they're running teams out of the gym, which should be a scary thought to the rest of the league once he does come back, because that's not even their final form. And given how young that team is, they're going to be good for years to come. Like, dynasties haven't really been much of a thing in the NBA. Like, in the 2000s, like ever since like the Lakers, and you can say the Spurs with Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili, that OKC team has the potential to be that next great dynasty. Now, a team that's on the negative side, now I didn't think they were going to be, I knew they were going to be bad, but I didn't think they were going to be this bad. Sacramento. With the amount of you mentioned the playmaking, I think Michael and Spencer, you mentioned the playmaking talent that the Raptors have, multiple playmakers. Yeah. Sacramento does have that in Sabonis, DeRozan, Levine, Schroeder, Russell Westbrook. There's one big difference between them and the Raptors. One team can play somewhat decent defense. The other team just, it's like, ole.
Yeah.
But I didn't think they were going to be this bad on both ends of the floor. And they would get blown out game after game after game. That last game against San Antonio with no Wemby, and San Antonio just took care of them like it was nothing. So Memphis is also another team that's been a negative surprise too. A lot of that has to do with John Morant. But yeah, that like their offense, Memphis's offense hasn't been great, and that's usually been kind of a staple. And their defense, not so much either. So Memphis and Sacramento are my two disappointments.
I do want to kind of jump on the Thunder because we've talked about for years all the draft picks, all the draft capital. Eventually, this team's going to get really good, and it took Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the trade that got them draft picks, might I add, when the Paul George trade to the Clippers, which didn't work out for the Clippers and has seemingly worked out in spades for the Oklahoma City Thunder. You mentioned Jalen Williams, who's been hurt all season. I know as a fantasy owner, has been kind of waiting for him to get back in the lineup, but guys like AJ Mitchell, who is that? I also asked that question when I picked him up in fantasy because he's been amazing for the Thunder right now.
He was actually really good for them in the first half of the season last year, but then got hurt.
Well, join them around Cason Wallace. Join them with all these other great guards they've got in, Lou Dort, who doesn't score the basketball at all, but is just a defensive stopper. One of the reasons why they're number one in defensive rating again this season, just as they were last year. Like, this Thunder team is not just really, really good. They're also really, really young, and they continue to get better, younger players because of all the draft capital. So they're a team that's going to be scary because they can continue to just keep shoveling in first round pick after first round pick after first round pick. And it's easy to draft a really good one when you've got four of them. You up the odds if you keep just taking first round pick after first round pick after first round pick, because teams just keep giving them to you. Formerly Kevin Durant, formerly Russell Westbrook, formerly Paul George, formerly Carmelo Anthony even. So
James Harden too.
Yeah, James Harden too, previously well before that. But now I'll go to you, Michael. Any teams that have really surprised you to begin this NBA season?
Well, I didn't think the Pistons would be this good. I thought they'd be good, and I'm happy for Detroit. I go back up, I was 11, 12 years old for the Bill Laimbeer, Joe Dumars Pistons, and Dennis Rodman Pistons. I've always kind of had a bit of a soft spot for them. Went to University in Windsor, so followed them a bit when I was down there. They had some really awful years, so it's nice to see Detroit back on top, having a really good season, see if they can keep it going. The Lakers, JC took a lot of my thunder there with the Lakers, because I just saw before we came on that LeBron is expected to make his debut tonight. What I think will be interesting for the Lakers is, because they're doing so well without him, sitting at 10-4, can they afford to, in a sense, load manage LeBron during games, right? I'm not talking about taking, the Thursday night off and whatever, but maybe they don't need to play him more than 20 minutes a game to get him back up to speed. And then when they're busy, when they have a busy schedule, right? Keep him healthy, because LeBron, again, JC alluded to it, he is still incredible, right? When he's healthy, when he's rested, there is almost no player still that can keep up with him. But they have the freedom now with what they've built around with Luka, that they can load manage him however they want to keep him healthy. You mentioned Cleveland. Holy cow, what a bullet the Raptors dodged not re-signing Kawhi Leonard, it seems. Or sorry, I meant Clippers. Sorry, I meant the LA Clippers. I'm sorry. The Clippers, he's not even planting trees anymore, and he still can't stay healthy. So, of course, we'll see what happens there with the fake tree planting company. But, the LA Clippers just can't seem to get their act together. But who I'm having a great time watching are the San Antonio Spurs. All sports see these generational players, and when Victor Wembanyama came in, he's too skinny, he's going to get hurt. I guess he's maybe a little banged up right now, but that guy is just an awesome player to watch. And I love it when guys that come in with that kind of hype actually play up to expectations. He's a funny guy. He seems to have a really interesting personality. His teammates seem to like him. And holy cow, can he play basketball. So, I watched a lot of Tim Duncan those years and how good San Antonio was in those years. And I, again, think it's really neat that maybe can Wembanyama take them back to that level. So I'm really keeping my eyes on the Spurs and seeing what they can do.
Yeah, the Spurs have also surprised me. Obviously, they drafted the top 5 last year. That's how they got Dylan Harper out of the draft, who's been really good for them. They picked up De'Aaron Fox at the deadline from the Sacramento Kings. He's been really good for them. Obviously, Wembanyama's been the guy we all expected him to be when he was drafted first overall a few years back. Now, obviously, injuries have plagued him a little bit. I also do think that's the San Antonio Spurs doing what the Oklahoma City Thunder did with Shea before they were really good, which is just, hey, we don't need him to be healthy because we don't need to be good yet. Give him a chance, let him figure it out, let him get healthy. Now this year, they obviously plan to be a higher echelon team with a guy like Stefan Castle playing so well as a former top draft pick out of UConn. They're a very young team, just like Oklahoma City, and I expect they're going to really push themselves into the upper echelons of the Western Conference if it is this year, but especially next year and the coming years with how young and how good that team is already, as you mentioned there, Michael. Now we will go to the NHL because you see I'm wearing a Bruins jersey because as of where this recording, we'll see how long it lasts. The Bruins right now lead the Atlantic Division, and the Leafs are below 500. So I couldn't be happy right now as a Bruins fan. I got to be honest. I got to be honest here, Cage. It's so nice to be a Bruins fan on today's day. We'll see how long this lasts for me on I believe a 6-game winning streak right now for the Bruins. They've been really hot recently. I'll start with you, Michael.
Yeah.
I want to pivot to the Leafs first. You see, I'm sure if you're a Leaf fan, I know I'm not, I know Cajun isn't, I know JC isn't. The Leafs have been a big surprise to everybody because obviously the dip we knew was coming because we can't lose a player like Mitch Marner, a round 100-point guy like Mitch Marner, and be the same team. That's just not possible. But they are well below expectation, and I've heard Leaf fans across the board kind of murmuring last season already, which I think is maybe a little bit premature. Yeah. But we're getting to that stage, Michael, where something's got to give. We're almost at the end of November. We're in the middle of November. Yeah. By the end of November, you got to feel like this team is turning it around, or is it a last season for the Leafs? Kind of what's been your feeling of the Toronto Maple Leafs to begin this NHL season?
Oh, confusion. So let me state for the record, I am a Mitch Marner guy. I was a huge supporter of Mitch Marner. I am sorry he chose to leave the Toronto Maple Leafs. He actually made me a Leafs fan. I'm not a Leafs fan, but anyway. The problem, of course, with the Leafs is that their players aren't getting any better anymore, right? So it's not like any of their star players are still on the rise. Their star players are who they are, right? Nylander's not getting better. Matthews is not getting better. They're close to 30 years old. Tavares is their best player at 35 years old, for goodness sake, right? Morgan Riley's not getting any better. And of course, because of what they have done to try and go all in each year, they haven't brought in draft picks. Easton Cowan, for all he's supposed to be, he was a 28th or 29th, whatever it is, overall pick. He's not supposed to be a superstar. He's supposed to be a really good, solid NHL player. So this is it. Yeah, I thought they'd be better. We have to have some understanding for injury, right? This is what I don't understand. I've never understood with teams that hide their injuries like the Leafs do, and others do it as well. But I think you'd let someone off the hook a little bit more if you said what was going on, right? Like Matthews was supposed to be day-to-day, and then he's not skating, and then he's on the IR. And so all this secrecy doesn't give them any goodwill with the fans, with anything. The goaltending, oh my goodness. How could they send Caden Primo away? They can't keep anybody else healthy. It seems like it might be one of those lost seasons where everything is kind of going to go wrong, and get over the Marner hangover. He's gone, kind of screw it all up this year. And maybe, again, we're mid-November. You're not giving up on it completely right now, but it could become that where it's just, this is a really down year. And then they try to come back guns blazing next September, right? Next October, after, again, all those hangovers of that era is supposed to be gone now, and they can redefine themselves. But this is really puzzling. I did not think they would. Oh, you can't ignore Tanev. He is the rock of that defense. Again, he's not superstar but he is the rock of that defense, and he's not there. So I do think Leafs fans and Leafs management, Leafs coaching staff and players need to be concerned, but I don't see, there is no easy solution. That's for sure.
Now, JC, I will go to you as an Ottawa Senators fan. I know you're enjoying this as much as I am right now, with the Leafs being the 5th worst team in the NHL, second last currently in the Atlantic. And again, everything's still to play for. We've only played 20 games. Even though we're about a quarter through the season, there are really no teams out of it at this point. Everyone seems to be beating everybody. A lot of teams are around 500, regulation 500 at least, and better. And, everybody seemingly not that far away from a playoff spot. If it's wild card or division spot, doesn't really matter. So, JC, your thoughts right now on the Leafs, and if you want to pivot that into the Senators, I'll let you, but opening thoughts right now on the Leafs, that again has been, in my opinion, one of the biggest shocks of the NHL season to begin this year.
Yeah, it really isn't going well for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think that it's always a layered thing in Toronto when you try to figure out where the problems are. It's not just one thing. It's usually a bunch of different things all working at the same time together. One of them is the loss of Mitch Marner, and another one is the fact that core is rotten now, and it's time to get rid of it and toss it in the garbage and rebuild with some new talent. The goaltending is not good. Craig Berube is under intense pressure. You can see that he's losing it. Just watch him run practice. He looks like a guy that knows he's on the hot seat. The press conference yesterday, we're recording this on Tuesday, but the press conference with the general manager, you know that he had that pre-scheduled because it's the quarter mark of the season update, but I'm sure he didn't want to be out there today answering those questions. So you can really see the pressure is getting to them. And traditionally in Maple Leaf history, when the pressure starts to get to you and you find yourself doing a lot of losing and knowing that you need to switch things up, do you know what they traditionally do? They traditionally trade away their young talent. And all of a sudden that puts a lens on Jared Cowan. He might be moving on. It puts a lens on, they've got some high draft picks, some second rounders. Those are probably now becoming expendable. Ben Danvers, I don't think that's his name, but the guy
Danford, you're close.
Danford, who just got traded to Brantford. He might be on the move. Cowan and him might go together. And do you know? Here's my prediction: Jordan Binnington. They're playing the Leafs on Tuesday night. That guy is not going to finish the season in St. Louis. He is going to Edmonton or he's going to Toronto, whoever wants to pay the higher price. And right now the Leafs have the assets to pay for it. And they could probably make that work within their cap. So you got to get yourself a goaltender. That's the one way to really start to change things around, is get a brand new goalie in there. He's going to star for Canada at the Olympics again this year. So the fan base is going to want it. They're going to start asking for it. Depending on how the game goes on Tuesday night, they might start asking sooner rather than later if he ends up shutting down the Leafs. So that would be my prediction, is they're going to do something stupid, and it's probably going to mean trading away some young talent.
Yeah.
Well, they got to go one of two ways, JC. That they either have to trade away the young talent to try to get better and think that this core can still win, which I think all of us right now kind of doubt, or they got to go the other way and trade, maybe not Nylander or Matthews, but, maybe trade somebody like Tanev, as you mentioned previously, or somebody like Riley maybe be on the block, or, maybe Max Domi may be on the move, or what have you. Cage, we got about a minute. You've obviously been to a bunch of the games for the Leafs. What do you feel like's really gone wrong for the Leafs to begin this season?
Well, before all that, I did say in that season preview that I didn't see the Leafs making the playoffs. Now, maybe that was my hatred of the Leafs showing because of Kamar stuff, but y'all looked at me like I was crazy. I ain't looking so crazy as of right now. But when this core of Matthews and Nylander and then Marner at the time was thriving, they were thriving on the sense of they pushed the pace. They push the pace. Now with this team, they're a lot slower, a lot more physical, but they're more or less so in their own end. And it may have worked last year, but teams are catching on to it this year, and it's not working out. And you got to just retool at that point. Trading away young guys just to try to win out is just not going to work out at the end of it all.
No, Cage, it probably won't, and we'll have to see what the Leafs end up doing as this season continues, and if the bad start kind of goes into, closer to the trade deadline or closer to the Olympics. I think JC's kind of hit that on the head, where I think a lot of teams are going to start making moves at the Olympics because their guys will be off and they'll have a chance to have everybody healthy and a little bit better knowledge of where guys are going to be. But that'll be it here for us. For JC Coots, Cajun Thayruth, Andy Castle, Michael Harris, and myself, Spencer Byers. We'll see you next week on RTV Sports Rap.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
You're watching an interesting local show on Rogers TV and you want to know more. That's when you head to rogerstv.com. Our website provides more information about our programs, our hosts, our schedule, and about how you too can get involved with Rogers TV. Visit us online at rogerstv.com.
Just like any other job, to succeed in the NHL, you gotta take care of business.
You need to know how to motivate fellow employees.
Come on, boys!
It's important to be goal-oriented.
Assist team members whenever possible. Always put the customer first.
Listen to this building. This place can't believe what they just saw.
Hey, beats a desk job.
What's wrong with a desk job?